Hi, my name is Brad Smart, founder of Top Grading. And Top Grading is a hiring approach that truly is the most proven and most effective. We're doing a series of blogs, videotapes, so I guess they're vlogs, sort of a beginner's course in top grading. And I promise you, you watch or listen to these blogs, you will learn how to hire better. Okay? So this, I'll just call it a blog. This blog will cost you nothing. It will save you a lot of time if you actually use this tip, and it will definitely improve your hiring success. I think you'll understand that in the next 2 or 3 minutes. The biggest problems in hiring are 1, candidate dishonesty, not just in the United States, but really all over the world. And we have research that indicates about 40% of resumes contain deliberate falsehoods, generally by low performers who want to conceal their weaker points. And those falsehoods are continued into the interviews. That's a big problem, right? Second problem is related to that, and that's poor verification of what candidates might have told you in the resume and in interviews, because they know that reference checks are generally not done or not done with the right people and generally worthless, so they can get away with those falsehoods, all right? Now, before we get to the tip, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. I've interviewed over 6,500 candidates for executive jobs, and when I started my career, frankly, I didn't like it. When I finished my PhD, I joined a firm of management psychologists who interviewed finalists for executive positions. I quickly learned that clients really wanted us to find out who are the BSers, which candidates have hyped their successes and hidden their failures and weaker points and so forth. So this was just mental sparring, and I didn't like that my job was to try to catch people in lies. But wait a minute, any of us who are involved in hiring, that's what we're doing when we interview people. That's a little harsh to say lies, but we're trying to sense when they're putting their best foot forward, when they're hiding things. And we don't want to be surprised later that how they portrayed themselves was way beyond how they actually perform. But we've all done it, right? And we've had those mishires, and they're costly, and we wish we could have known more of the valuable truths about a candidate before we interviewed them, before we hired them, all right? Okay, so when I was in my first 3 or 4 months, I was fortunate enough to interview a guy who had terrific hiring record. And when asked how he did it, he gave me what I'm giving you now, the truth serum tip, which I passed on to clients, which they used. It enabled them to weed out the low performers and BSers and only send me really good candidates, which resulted in their hiring almost all A players, which made their businesses more successful. And selfishly, I was having a lot more fun, all right? You will too when you use top grading. So you're a manager, and you hire people, and do you want to know a surefire way to sort the high performers and the truthful candidates from the low performers and BSers? And here's the tip. This is the $1 billion tip. Here it is. Tell candidates, or have recruiters do it, that right out of the starting gate, a final step in hiring is for candidates, that's you, candidates, to arrange for reference calls with your managers in the past decade and reference checks with others at a time you approve, of course, and that might be when there's a job offer. So I'm going to repeat that. Tell candidates a final step in hiring is for you, candidate, to arrange reference calls with the folks I want to talk with, certainly bosses you reported to in the past 10 years. If it's a manager, maybe a couple peers, a couple of direct reports. And of course, we would ask you to arrange those calls until the timing is appropriate. After we've gone through all the steps, you want the job, we're ready to present you with an offer. Well, if I could have patented that little advice and sold it, I think I'd be in the Forbes 400, a billionaire. When you saw this is the billionaire tip, did you think I was promising that you would become a billionaire? That's sort of a joke, but there are half a dozen billionaires who would say they didn't become billionaires without top grading. And that's the truth. Okay, so a little more background. More than 24 Fortune 500 companies plus hundreds of small companies and startups and mid-sized companies have benefited from this tip. They've improved their hiring significantly. When candidates are given this short truth serum speech, frankly, the C players, who tend to be those with a lot of fabrications in their resume, drop out because they know they're busted. They cannot get away with this charade. They know that they couldn't get their bosses to talk with you, and they wouldn't want them to talk with you anyway because probably some negatives would come out, right? Well, many companies prohibit their managers from taking reference calls. But in over 40 years of top grading experience with all of our top grading professionals, we know that high performers do get their bosses to take the reference calls. They might think of this as a personal reference rather than a business reference, but the main thing is this. We're not aware of a single instance of a manager who violated their company policy by taking the reference call getting in any kind of trouble. Okay? And just a little PS to that, in all these years, top grading has never been sued. We've never sued anybody. And that's been verified by one of the largest employment law firms, Seyfarth Shaw, in our various books. So, use the truth serum. You no longer have to waste hours and hours screening candidates that are low performers, and most important, you're much more likely to avoid those costly mishires. Till next time, in the next blog, hope you try this tip because I promise you, you will hire better.